They found baby corpses stuffed into jars inside a closet in my house. When my husband and our teenage daughter found the skeletons of 5 babies in a closet, I couldn't believe it. The shock of discovering human bones in our apartment affected me greatly. There were 3 bodies inside plastic containers filled with cement and 2 more hidden in plastic bags in a freezer. Hi everyone, I'm Michele Kalina, and I want to share my story. She was a 44-year-old nursing assistant. I lived in Pennsylvania with my husband of 14 years and our teenage daughter, who was the one who opened the closet for the first time. We also had a disabled son, aged 13, who had passed away 10 years earlier. I had a long-term affair with a man who never knew he had children. I also gave birth to a daughter with this same man, but gave her up for adoption in 2003. In August 2010, I was arrested after my husband called the police to report that he and our teenage daughter had found suspicious bones hidden in a closet that I told them they should never open. I remained in custody accused of abusing a corpse until officials could determine how the babies died, but the judge revoked my initial bail as soon as the autopsy results came in. At least one of the 4 babies, the autopsy revealed, was born alive. The evidence clearly pointed to at least one murder. And I was the only suspect. I initially told the police that I didn't know what had happened, claiming that I was an alcoholic and that I often passed out. The county district attorney initially announced that the 4 babies were born alive and later died from asphyxiation, poisoning, or neglect. Subsequently, however, the charges were reduced to 3rd-degree murder when it was discovered that the bones were too old and degraded for accurate analysis and to know the cause of death. For years, my husband had never looked into that closet, even though our apartment wasn't especially spacious. I told them never to look there, as I intended to clean it up. But my husband had other suspicions. She thought she might have been pregnant over the years without admitting it, but she believed me when I claimed she had recurrent ovarian cysts that needed drainage. Our daughter also wanted to know what was inside the closet. One day he researched on his own. When he opened the cupboard, he immediately reported it to his father. My husband testified at trial that although he loved me, he was disabled and our marriage had been celibate for years. He never saw me naked, so he could hide my pregnancies. Although I told him and our daughter that opening the closet was forbidden, they didn't hesitate to report the horrific contents. When officers arrived, they told my husband and daughter that the remains were probably not human and to throw them away. As a result, a bone was discarded and had to be recovered from a landfill. However, my husband ignored the advice of the police. He called again the same day after finding additional remains. This time, authorities dug deeper and concluded that the bones were human. Due to the state of decomposition, it was difficult to collect DNA material. However, there was enough evidence to show that 3 of the 4 babies belonged to my lover. A 4th child may have been his, while the paternity of the 5th remains a mystery. Other evidence indicated that at least one of the fetuses had moved and was likely alive at birth. Later, I admitted to wrapping all the babies in towels, thinking they were stillborn, but it is possible that one of them was breathing and that the towel was too tight, causing his death. DNA testing of my 2nd daughter, born in a hospital in Reading, where I told the staff that she was separated from the baby's husband, showed that my lover was the father. My husband and I started dating in 1984 and got married 2 years later. I was 19 years old and dropped out of college to attend a wedding when I gave birth to our first child in 1987. The boy's name was Andrew, but due to a botched birth, he was born with cerebral palsy. In 1991 we had our 2nd daughter, a girl. I spent 7 years caring for Andrew at home until my husband became disabled and took on the role of his full-time caregiver. In 2000, Andrew passed away at the age of 13. So we moved from a house to a handicapped skyscraper. I took the tubs and body bags from the old house to the new apartment, where I locked everything up. I entered the workforce in the mid-1990s as a home health aide and earned a reputation for being an excellent worker, kind, and helpful to my older patients. In 1996, I began an affair described as on again, off again, in court records with one of my co-workers. According to reports from the court-appointed psychiatrist for my case, my co-worker and lover often refused to use condoms during our encounters. No hospital has records of me giving birth to any of the 5 babies. In 1997, I hid from everyone, including the biological father, the first in a series of 6 pregnancies. I told the court that I gave birth at home, in my bathtub, and immediately disposed of the bodies, although I admitted to having few memories of the actual births. I successfully concealed the pregnancies by lying to both my husband and my lover, telling them both that I had recurrent cysts that made me look pregnant but could be drained, and they both took my word for it, even though my husband strongly suspected I was pregnant. The biological father was never implicated in the babies' deaths, but he refused to testify at the arraignment or at my trial. I had no knowledge of any of the births, including the child I gave up for adoption in 2003. I told the court-appointed psychiatrist that I believed all the babies were stillborn, so I wrapped them in blankets before placing them in the bathtub. Then I closed the tubs in my closet and said I was putting the bodies away out of shame to remember our illicit relationship. The babies were born between 1996 and 2010. Because the remains were found in a state of decomposition, the exact causes of death will never be determined. A doctor characterized me as a chronic alcoholic who had drank heavily during the birth of the 5 babies. He reported that he had severe depression and other mental health issues. The doctor said he didn't show any emotion or empathy for the babies. And that she fit the definition of a serial killer. That it's not at all uncommon for a serial killer to keep trophies as souvenirs. The babies were very small. And I didn't allow maternal attachment. This is a really unusual case. On August 4, 2011, at the age of 46, I was found guilty of third-degree murder, abuse of a corpse, and failure to report a corpse. I received the maximum sentence for murder in the state of Pennsylvania, which was 20 to 40 years without the possibility of parole. I didn't confess to all 5 murders, but I did admit to placing the babies in tubs or plastic bags before locking them in the closet, as well as moving the remains from our home to our new apartment. The defense team described me as a woman with a serious mental illness resulting from physical and psychological abuse during my education. Both my 19-year-old daughter and my husband testified that they loved me and would maintain their relationship with me. My daughter told the court that he would visit me in prison, and my husband stated that he would remain married to me. Authorities in Pennsylvania never identified my mistress. To this day, I am an inmate housed at Muncie Prison, a medium-high security correctional facility for women in Pennsylvania. During the trial, a psychology professor and expert in criminal psychology concluded that one could not really comment on the motive for the murders because this case was unique. He said I didn't fit the typical profile of mothers who kill their babies. I wasn't a young, first-time mom, and I was very functional in my daily life, holding down a full-time job and taking care of a family. So it was a puzzling series of murders. Finally, we have to admit that sometimes there is never a clear reason. My case is so disturbing that there is nothing to compare it to. Tell me, do you think that if my daughter hadn't opened the closet, I would go on with my normal life? Let me know in the comments. If you want more stories like mine, don't hesitate to subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss the next one. Also, you would help us a lot by leaving a like and sharing my story. It doesn't cost you anything. Thank you so much for watching the video to the end.